Good morning, dear colleagues. I would like to introduce myself once again. My name is Hizhnyak and I represent Federal State Budget Institution of Center of Agrochemical Service Belgorodsky. In the beginning, I would like to tell you about the structure of my report. It will consist of several blocks. Preferably, the information will be theoretical. In the beginning, I would like to tell you about Belgorod Oblast, about this region, agroclimatic features and soil cover. In the second block, I will tell you about the soil erosion research that was carried out in 2016. Then we will consider the matter of soil erosion and agrochemical research and monitoring of soil fertility. After this, my colleague and I we will demonstrate you online how the system works. I would like to tell you about the main functions of Federal State Budget Center Agrochemical Belgorodsky, the survey of agrochemical erosion of soils. Besides, we developed the projects of adaptive landscape systems of farming, as well as design estimation documents for chalking, for liming of sour soils. Besides that, we also carry out agroecological monitoring. We carry out mapping works. Besides, we test soil, grounds, raw material and agricultural product, feed, and also agrochemical matter and surface and underground water. Belgorod Oblast was formed in 1954. It is located on the southwest of the Russian Federation and is part of Central Chernozem economic area. Belgorod Oblast is located in the range of southwest Central Russian upland. In a whole, the territory of Oblast has overall slope of the surface towards the southern and southwest directions. The main directions of the valleys and watersheds is longitudinal. Eastern part of the oblast has a lot of gullies and ravines. As for the modern geomorphological process, the territory is characterized by intensive washing out of the soil and erosion of grounds. As for the climatic features, the oblast can be divided by three climatic areas. The first one, by its hydrothermal coefficient, is 1.1. This territory is the wettest one within the oblast. The second climatic area is the territory with the coefficient of within the range of from 1 to 1.1. And the third climatic area occupies predominantly southeast part of the oblast, with the range of hydrothermal coefficient less than 1. This climatic area has the less wettest feature and the highest some of the highest temperatures. Analyzing these features of the Belgorod Oblast, so we can point out that it can be referred to the more modest continental area with the transfer from more wettest climate in the western area to insufficiently humid in the southeast part. But in general, judging by the climatic resources, the territory is more or less favorable for planting most agricultural cultures. The most fertile soils in the world are Chernozems, fat soil. Russia possesses about 50% of all Chernozem soils in the world. The territory possesses Chernozems within the range of 70%. The most white parent rock material on the territory is loess loam and clay. On the east part and the southeast of this oblast, and partially in the central areas of oblast, the soil was formed based on tertiary clays. Losses occupy insufficient part, and mainly they are met on the western parts of oblast. The western part can be referred to the Ukrainian forest steppe province. Mainly you can meet here podzolized, leached and typical medium humus soils, as well as gray forest soil. Central and eastern territory of Oblast, they are part of medium Russian forest steppe province. East part of Oblast is referred to medium Russian province of steppe Chernozem. The blockers have Chernozems, typical Chernozems. Some blocks are represented by solonetzik soil. The southern part, by the feature of the soil cover, they represent transferable type of soil. It's some kind of buffer range between steppe and the forest steppe Chernozems. Mostly Chernozems, they cover the biggest range of the soil of the Belgorod Oblast, as I already mentioned. So they occupy around 77% of all soils. Among Chernozems prevail standard, typical, leached, and standard. The second part after Chernozems within the territory, the soil is dark gray and forest gray soil. After that come alluvial meadow boggy soil, solonetzik Chernozem, and podzolized Chernozems. Chernozems, typical, they are most favorable for planting because they have very favorable features. They have very good structure. Besides, they are slightly packed. Soil is very good humused. As for mechanical composition of soil, there prevail light clay and heavy clay loam soil. Reaction of the soil medium is neutral or close to neutral. As I already mentioned, Chernozems are very favorable, very good for planting, for growing. Due to such features as density of composition, porosity, structure, aggregate composition, water penetrability, and water capacity. Leached Chernozems, who occupy also considerable amount of Belgorod Oblast, they differ slightly by the fertility and by the structure from Chernozems typical. The most distinctive feature is they're more condensed, they're more packed. The soil is more acid. But leached Chernozems, they are in the same group as Chernozems typical. Ordinary Chernozems, they were formed on carbonate loess loam and clays. They differ from Chernozem typical by less capacity of humus horizon. Ordinary Chernozems, they have less reaction of the soil. They are well provided by nitrogen. Solonetzik Chernozem, they lay by small blocks among Chernozems. And usually they lay in the southern slope of the exposition, where the clay is more close to the surface. This soil has unfavorable agrochemical features that influences surely the growth and development of the plants. Dark gray and soils, they were developed under the oak area as a result of podzolic type of soil formation. Dark gray forest soil have worse agrochemical features, and in general they are less favorable for growing the plants and agricultural plants in comparison with soils that were mentioned previously. Meadow soils, they are met in the area of the rivers. Such rivers as Oskol and Severny Donets, so they were mentioned the names of the rivers. Such soils, they are highly fertile soils. Humus horizon is about 60 centimeters, and the content of humus reaches up to 7%. So I've told you about the main soils of Belgorod Oblast. So I would like to tell you now about soil erosion research that was carried out in Belgorod Oblast. That started in 2013 and it's still ongoing. As methodological basis that was used for the research, so we used some literature. We used literature that was written by the Doctor of Agriculture, Solovichenko, who previously participated in 2 tours of soil mapping of the oblast, and who was the head of all the works that were carried out. He also carried out practical work practice for our workers. On this slide, you can see the list of the literature that was used during the work. That is methodology for soil erosion survey of slope land in Belgorod region, reproduction of fertility of soils and productivity of agricultural crops of central Chernozem region, as well as fertility and rational use of soils of the Belgorod region. Besides, we used all country guidance manual for soil survey and mapping, methodological literature for soil mapping under Kasatkin, and soil mapping. We also used classification and diagnostics of soil of USSR that was edited in 1977. Cameral stage of the soil erosion survey carried out started from the search of the space bases. As for the space bases to carry out such kind of surveys, there were raster maps that were helpful. Raster maps of the second full-scale soil research that was carried out from the period of 1965 till 1980. Old maps were taken from the archive of Rosreestr. The outcome of this work were maps with the scale 1 to 25,000. Then these maps were scanned and inventorized. For the territorizing of the maps, we used EasyTrace software. Attributive information was assigned within the software complex as ArcGIS. Plain cartographic bases for topographical maps were also taken from Rosreestr with more exact profile of horizons 2.5 meters. The same as previously, this was also transferred into vector format. Having all these materials, we could start erosion research. We defined the maps for the boring, for the digging, using the maps. The previously mentioned maps, they were built by the workers of the agrochemical service using ArcGIS software, as well as materials that were taken from Rosreestr. I would like to show you the old map of 1980 that was vectorized and that showed the soil cover. But this map also had information about erosion processes. Combining vectorized old soil map as well as maps of expositions and slopes, that all helped us to be exact by making points for the digging, for the boring. The points for the digging, they were placed using soil morphological method on the smooth areas of lacquer soil formation. With the lack of washout, they were located full profile cuts. So full profile sections were placed there. On the areas with the range from 1 to 3 degrees, we placed semi-holes. We opened humus accumulative horizon. On the southern slopes, they were mainly southern exposition, they were pre-copse. As for the difference of humus layer between the profiles made on the unwashed soil difference, they were estimated the range of erosion. So the range of erosion was estimated there. The capacity of humus layer is the amount of horizons with index A. As I already said, so they received data, they were compared, and we could judge about the range of the erosion. For each 1,000 hectare, there were 1 profile and 3 semi-holes. From each profile, there were taken 6 soil samples from every genetic horizon of the soil profile. From the semi-hole, they were taken 3 samples, and from pre-cop, from the 1 dig, 1 sample. Every sample was surveyed from the chemical features. So we defined the content of humus, phosphorus, potassium, actual potential, and hydrolytic acidity. Also interchangeable forms of potassium, magnesium, and also granulometric granulous composition of the soil. After the field stage of the soil erosion survey, when digging points were taken and samples as well, erosion range was defined and morphological characteristics were provided. The final stage was carried out. In the range of this work, the soil contours were corrected. The range of the erosion that was defined on a certain area by the way of extrapolation was assigned to other areas. Not others, but analogous areas. Identical by the hypsometrical conditions. Exposition and the slope range. Similar soil. During this work, we use sub-meter space shooting. Also to define the areas of intrazonal soils. Intrazonal soils, they are the soils on the genesis of which definite factors are influencing. Such conditions as heavy humidity, close laying of carbonate, etc. By this, we define the areas as meadow, chernozem, solonedic, and residual solonedic soils. We also defined light capacity soils, residual carbonate soils, by decoding within the spectrum of space shooting. After forming the soil map, we started its generalization. The contours that were small by the space, they were included into areas that were prevailing. After field stage and getting chemical composition of soils, the outcome of our work was that we received our actual soil map. Besides that, erosion maps were compiled, as well as the maps of agroecological types. While demonstrating our system, I will tell about these maps more. I should say that agroecological types of maps, they are more acute nowadays. Taking into consideration that in Belgorod Oblast and in Russia in general, they are implemented an adaptive landscape type of agriculture with a counter-meliorative type of organizing. So this is it, and I would like to tell more about erosion. As far as monitoring of erosion of arable soils in Belgorod Oblast is an acute issue, taking into account high level of erosions of arable soils. This is the issue of provision of food security within not only Belgorod Oblast but for Russia as well. Necessity to carry out measures for preservance and upgrade of fertility of soils, not only on the valleys but also for the slope soils. The documents of the Conference of the United Nations for the Environment and Development that was carried out in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, they was pointed out that the most disseminated types of degradation of soil are water and wind erosions. Main types of degradation of soils are water and wind erosions. For water erosion comes 56% and for wind erosion comes 28%. So in the overall range of the soil degradation. Annual soil washout for the whole history of the use of the arable soils on the slopes is considerably higher of the acceptable level of the washing out. The waste of humus happens due to the erosion and uncompensated mineralization of organic matter. Annually, the loss of humus is estimated as 1,245,000 tons per year. And as for Belgorod Oblast, the loss is 242,000 tons. Based on Mr. Shatilev's data, the figures are a bit less, but also they are bigger than the acceptable level of washing out. The decrease of the content of organic matter in the soil by 1% lower than the optimum level leads to the drop of the crop by 0.5 to 1 ton per hectare. The most part of degree of erosion comes to Belgorod Oblast, among other oblasts. The range of soils with erosions and slope soils is higher than for other parts, for other oblasts. The overall percentage of the soils with erosion is 54%. The sloping land of the area, the slopes with the degree of more than 1 degree, they occupy about 70%. The oblast is also characterized by a large degree of other type of lands. Yeah. Precipitations have form of heavy rains. The users of land, they do not keep a system of anti-erosion protection. All this leads to heavy processes of erosion formation. Highly eroded are Chernozoms, standard, ordinary, dark gray points. The most eroded type of soils, around 80%. I don't know how to say it in English. It's like bulk, not bulk soils. Unwashed soils, they are kept only on the plateau and on watershed slopes, as well as on the slopes of northern exposition with the range up to 3 degrees. Medium and heavily washed out soils, they occupy slopes of predominantly southern exposition with the range more than 3 degrees, with the degree more than 3 degrees. Based on the material of large-scale soil survey, they were used also the maps of the sloping lands and disseminated lands and special features of the climate, as well as development of erosion process. 5 erosion areas were distinguished within Belgorod Oblast. The first western erosion area is located on the western part of Oblast. It's the area with the weak dissemination of erosions. The second is central erosive area. It's the area of medium type of washing of dissemination. The third area is northern east erosive area. It's the area of heavy dissemination of washing out. The third area has sub-areas. Eastern sub-area is characterized by a less range of erosions. Light washing out. This area is similar to the western part. The fourth area is Oskol, northern part erosion area. Here, wind erosion prevails. It's the area with weak deflation and washing out of soils. The area of the washing out soils reaches 25%. The fifth area is southeastern erosion area with heavy type of soil washing out. The washed out soils occupy here 72%. Heavily and medium washed out 24%. And the last sub-area, number 5, southern sub-area of weak washing out. Many scientists famous such as Dokuchaev, Kostychev, they are soil scientists. They also paid attention in their works in intercommunications, interlinks between the exposition of the slopes and the content of feeding elements for Chernozyms. Very important is slope exposition and its influence on the agroecological status of the soil. So when erosion research was taken within the Belgorod Oblast, we had considerable amount of statistical information material. We had a task to prove such interconnection. Slope exposition and Chernozem washing out intercommunication, the influence on the range of acidity and the content of the organic matter. We found out that at finding the range of the erosion of the washing out range, Chernozyms typical and leached, the range of salinity in the arable layer increases, but organic matter decreases. The content of humus is less comparable with the southern part of the slope. It is due to the fact that on the slopes of warm exposition, erosion processes are more extensive. Chernozyms typical and leached, with increasing the range of washing out, organic matter decreases considerably and a little bit less on the slopes of neutral expositions and less content of the organic matter on the slopes of cold expositions. The amount of pH, Ks and pH water with the increase of the range of washing out considerably increase on the slopes of warm expositions and less on neutral and especially on cold slopes. Thus, oblasts, the slopes of cold exposition are more favorable for in the matter of agroecological conditions than warm slopes. Block number 4, I would like to give agrochemical characteristic of oblast. The content and the reserves of the organic matter in soils traditionally serves as the main criteria for soil fertility. During the last years, they are more considered from the point of view of stability of soils and as the component of biosphere. The main reason for the negative balance of the organic matter can be stated as forced mineralization of organic components of soil due to intensive processing and application of mineral fertilizers. Previously in Belgorod Oblast we had deficit of mineral fertilizers and also the dissemination of erosion adds to this process. The definition of the content of the organic matter in the program of the agrochemical survey of arable soils was included in the fourth cycle of the survey from 1985 till 1989. During the period of the survey from 1985 till 2018, the content of the organic matter was considerably changed. It was not established the considerable change of the amount of the organic matter in the soil. This index is within the range of 5%. Currently, the main part of the arable soils of the oblast, more than 76%, they are referred to the category of medium provided in the matter of content of organic. Mr. Pranishnikov, the founder of the Russian agrochemical school, pointed out several times. He said that no matter how large is the production of mineral fertilizers in the country, the application, the use of organic fertilizers will be ever important to maintain the soil fertility. The maximum level of the use of the organic fertilizers was fixed in 1985. The amount was 5.4 ton per hectare. Then there was the period with the less amount of fertilizers application. And from the period of 2005-2009, the figure is 1.2. Although during the last years the tendency is positive due to the fact of the animal breeding increase in the oblast. And due to this index, we can make a prognosis that the amounts will be increased in the coming years. Arable soils of forest steppe zone of central Chernozem area in the process of intensive agricultural use, they are intensively decalcinated. Depending on the amount of crop of agricultural plants, the loss of calcium changed in the range of 25-40 kilos per hectare per year. Negative influence on the acidity of the soil solution is influenced by the application of sour fertilizers. That such fertilizers are acid by the physiological features. In the conditions of oblast, with the increase of the washing out range, acidity of all arable lands is decreasing. Such outcome is supported by the results of agrochemical monitoring, where a positive correlation is established between the range of erosive soils in the areas and the range of pH. Acidity of soils monitoring was started in 1976. At that time, the portion of acid soils was about 22.8%. During the period of 1990-2004, the portion of the sour soils was quite stable and was presented by 32.5%. Actually, it corresponds to the range of the structure of the arable soils of podzolic Chernozyms and dark gray forest soils. Based on the last monitoring, the range of the sour soils decreased up to 40.84%, including heavily and medium sour up to 9.11%. In 2010, when the head of the Belgorod Oblast issued a special document and he approved a long-term target program for sour soils, the pouring of chalk into the soil is continuing till now. So within the range of this program in 2010, there was applied chalk for 8.3 thousand hectares of arable soil. In 2017, around 90,000 hectares were processed. Thus, as a result of long-term use of arable soils of forest steppe zone that are predominantly presented by dark gray forest soils, Chernozem, podzolized and leached, arable soils become more sour. During the period of 1975-2017, the share of the sour soils increased from 22.9 till 44%. But at the same time, at the equal anthropogenic load, arable soils of steppe zone of the oblast, represented by Chernozems ordinary, they become more leached. As a result of these two diverse processes, the medium amount of pH for the cycles of the research practically stay the same, although hydrolytic acidity has the stable tendency for the decrease. Potassium is referred to the main element for the feeding of the plants. Taking out of potassium with the crop is higher than the phosphorus and more higher than nitrogen. Based on the first cycle of the agrochemical survey, the medium content of the mobile potassium is about 105 milligram per kilo. So the level of the fertilizers used was very low. This was the main reason of this. I should say that in the western and northern parts of the oblast, where the mother rocks are forest clays, mobile potassium the content is higher. As some scientists think, with the increase of the erosion range of the soils, the content of the mobile potassium increases. Based on the monitoring in Belgorod Oblast, we could establish the relevance of erosive process and potassium content with the content of mobile potassium. The correlation is positive. R is equal to 0.49. Thus, during the 50 year of the content of the mobile potassium in soils of forest steppe zone of Belgorod Oblast increased by 105 milligram per kilogram. Nowadays, medium content of mobile potassium in soils of oblast is 164 milligram per kilo. Thus, the level of provision of soils with the mobile potassium is practically optimal for getting high level of crops. And in conclusion, some words about phosphorus. As far as phosphorus is one of important elements for feeding the plants. Based on the first cycle of agrochemical monitoring that was carried out within the period of 1964-1970, the main limiting factor was the content of mobile phosphorus. At that time, the medium value was about 55 milligram per kilo. Phosphorus balance at that time was negative. Then, when the process of putting chemical elements into soil, systematic putting of organic fertilizers, the medium value of phosphorus content in the soil was increased. On this slide, you can see the dynamic of putting organic and mineral fertilizers into the soil. Negative correlation between the mobile phosphorus and medium value of pH is observed on the territory of the oblast. Our coefficient is minus 0.43. Thus, negative correlation between the content of mobile phosphorus and a medium value of pH is established in erosive soils. The correlation is also negative. R is equal to minus 0.5. With the increase of pH and the range of soil erosion, mobility of phosphorus is decreased. Thus, the eastern parts where Chernozymes ordinary are prevailing, the content of mobile phosphorus is less compared to western parts of oblasts, where area belongs to Chernozem leached. As for agrochemical characteristic of oblast, that's it. That's all information I wanted to provide. And I would like to demonstrate our system. Dear colleagues, now it's time to demonstrate the outcome of our work in part of GIS system. In 2017, in the center of Belgorodsky, there was developed and implemented geoinformation system under the working name of Agroecolog Online. It provides the access to the database of agrochemical service through the website that is pointed on the up side. GIS is based on the digital base of agrochemical service in the format of SQL. The base contains the information for the fertility of soils, in the profile of every working plot. Territorial basis of the information system were based on the vectorized maps of the farms, detailed through space pictures. Although we cannot use more precise space pictures, only common pictures that are accessible. So for this reason, we use space pictures that are available through internet or through Google or Yandex. Nevertheless, we have some success concerning the request and getting the space photos of high precision. GIS is functioning as the website. As far as it's not a software, it shouldn't be installed on the personal computer. So it doesn't have any load for the users. To work within this system, you just need an internet access. You possibly can use even modem 3G internet. The system can be operated by any internet browser, but preferably you should use Mozilla Firefox. The access to the system can be achieved through internet with the dissemination of the levels of the access. Previously, when the system was developed, we had to achieve two tasks. From one hand, to help the land users to use land efficiently. From the other hand, to facilitate the government bodies, Department of Agrochemical Complex of Oblast, to take managerial decisions and implement monitoring. For this reason, the access has various levels. It is divided into federal, oblast level, rayon, oblast, and the level of the land users. So you have to go to the site agrochem 31.ru, and you have to follow the link GIS agrochem. The system requires login and password. So depending on the level of the access, you have to input relative login and password. And then you go to the corresponding level that corresponds to the hierarchy. The mapping is clickable, so you can click on any part. We can select oblast or area of interest by clicking on this place, or through the part where you can choose the territory manually. So now we are interested in Belgorod Oblast, as far as information is more full for this oblast. So let's choose the area. So now we choose Rakitansky area. Okay, so we go to the map of the land user, and we can choose collective farm Знамя труда. Here you can see the land plots that belong to this collective farm.
Земельные участки, которые принадлежат колхозу Знамя труда.
Each plot has an identical number. The unique number was generated based on the guidelines by the agricultural department. That is based on the number of so-called ОКТМО. So every plot is identified and a special number is given to each area of land. But in any case, there is a possibility to switch on to the special numbers of the land users. We can consider thematical maps, main ones, which are available for uploading in our system. So we can make the map of the movable phosphorus content. It's a dynamic map, so it's not raster one. It is constructed based on the last ongoing survey. In the same way, you can construct a map of the movable potassium, cartographic map based on the level of the acidity, content of the organic matter. You can also see cartographics based on the organic matter content. As far as most part of the arable lands are very poor in the content of the organic matters, These maps, they are not too much contrast in color.
Следующая карта.
The next map is the map of the exposition that I was talking in my previous speech. So you can make a map of the slope degree. So this map constructs the dissemination of lands depending on the degree. A degree map was made in 2014-2015 for the Belgorod Oblast, for the whole territory. Not only for Belgrade. So taking into account the degree of the slopes, and it is used together with the exposition map. Slope degree map and erosion map and the exposition map, they help to carry out soil erosion survey. Soil cover map was based on the soil erosion monitoring.
Почвенная карта почвенного покрова.
Besides the map of soils and dynamic legend that is attached to this map, you can also download layer by layer chemical and granulometric composition for each point of digging or boring. With different colors, you can see the availability of semi-holes, etc. So clicking by on any place of the map, you can see the information about chemical composition and granulometrical one that is available at that place. The next map that can be downloaded is the map of erosions. The erosion map contains 7 groups according to the degrees of the erosion processes. The red color on the map shows the aggravation of the worsening of the erosion process. So you can see the dynamic of the erosion process. This is the visual picture of this problem that is displayed on the map. The map can be saved and you can print it out. But there is also possibility to make a report, so you can have not only visual display, but also a numerical report. We have a special unit with various reports. You can make a report on the erosion change of the soils, where you can find comparable information between old, so-called previous soil map and the new one. Precisely this collective farm was monitored in 1977, and in 2015 there was carried out corrective soil monitoring. From the report you can see that within the period of 40 years, the area of slightly washed lands was increased by 18%, and medium and heavily washed out was increased by 8%. Also, you can display statistical information of the erosion monitoring of soils
эрозионного обследования.
by various parameters.
Параметрам.
So I'm downloading the report where such parameters are taken into consideration as horizon erosion. It refers to the type of the soils.
Горизонт, эрозия.
The report on various elements is downloaded now.
Элементом питательным.
This statistical processing was required.
Необходимо.
This statistical processing was required, so just to align the database to the current situation.
К уровню закономерности. Для этого необходимо было, собственно, сделать статистическую обработку.
The next map is the map of agroecological types of soils. This kind of map is compiled based on the materials of agrochemical and soil erosion monitoring. This map is the basis for the future design of the crop return in the system of the farming.
Оборотов в системе земледелия.
The legend to this map has full information.
На карте она информационно наполнена.
There are 23 types that are defined for the Belgorod Oblast. And the description for each agroecological type can be seen in the legend.
Типа в легенде. Здесь
Brief information is contained here
информация
concerning soil cover and the degree of the slopes, recommended crop returns, soil processing, plant protection section, and other parameters. The Center of Agrochemical Service provides this information, and he records it, not farmer by farmer, but the center collects the information. And the participation of the farmers will be described later, so their input will be described later. So subject maps
выступления. То есть
were displayed.
увидели практически все.
I would like to show adaptive cards of the land users.
Земледелие, охрана почвы.
That includes plant crop return, and environmental issues. Planting forest line.
Заложение лесополос, либо залужение.
Every forest line is clickable.
Кликабельно.
Has information about the expenses, about the width, length, and the date when the work started for the planting of the forest. I would like to say some words about e-book of fields history. So I would like to come to the next unit. Filling out of the e-book of fields history. Every land user of Belgorod Oblast has to keep the history of fields. And we propose our own variant of e-book of fields history keeping, hoping that it should be effective, efficient, useful for the land users from one hand. And from the other hand, almost 100% filling of the information concerning the history of the fields can help to form the report on the crops and the structure of the cropping fields. So the e-book of the history of fields should be filled in by the farmers. It consists of several parts. General information consists information about the number of the plot, about the area. It's not editable information. The field concerning the ownership is editable. This is the only part that can be edited. Agrochemical information concerning the feature is also contained here, with the main features and additional, where you can see information about microelements. Then there is information concerning soil erosion monitoring, information about prevailing soil cover. The main part that should be filled in is concerning crop return. The crop, this part concerning the crop, it should be filled in by the farmer. So information about the previous crop and also the information about the type, the grade and reproduction, the norm of the growing, the date of the planting and the date of the yield. Filling it is simple because you have the falling out list. The process is accelerated and it's not possible to make any mistake. So the first part is mineral fertilizers. The information concerning the type of the fertilizer and the dose. It can be used not only for the current crop, but also for the previous one. The next part is organic fertilizers. From the falling out list, you can choose the type of the fertilizer. You can also put the dose of the fertilizer used and the time when you applied it. I should say that in Belgorod Oblast, all animals, so to say, fertilizers are brought to the center where they are monitored, they are considered. So to be transferred into organic fertilizers, there should be some kind of testing in terms of the usefulness of this material, the content of the heavy metals, microbiological indices. For this reason, the base of the protocols is connected to our system. Agronome, the land user who has to fill in this part, knowing the number of the protocol for the fertilizers testing, can select it and can get the information concerning the proportion of the nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus composition. Within the range of the portion of the fertilizers used by this farmer. So this is based not on some kind of book material, but on the test outcomes. Protocols can be downloaded in format of Word, Excel, and PDF. Printed out and used for work. So the next part is information concerning the land processing. You should specify the type of processing, the depth of processing, and the date. And you can create the required number of the fields corresponding to the number of the processing. History of fields also includes such parts as protection of the plants, here is provided information concerning the chemical protection. You can select the type of the matter that you use for protection and the dose. By this, you make the history of the chemical protection of plants. The next one is diseases, bad herbs that influence the crop, and the insects that influence your yield as well. Depending on the type of the crop, you can select, and the period of the crop, you can select the details, the names of the insects that influence your crop. So the task of the farmers is to estimate in qualitative and quantitative terms and insert information into the e-book of the history. The same system is used for the diseases and for the bad herbs that influence the yield. It's quite rare that we use such qualitative and quantitative estimation in Belgorod Oblast. So for this reason, the main load is for the agrohim complex. I would like to say a couple of words about the calculation mode. The system enables to estimate the scientifically proven dose, the portion of using the fertilizers for the plant yield. For this reason, you have to select the crop. For example, they already selected the type of the crop. You have to specify what kind of crop was previously, and specify the amount of the plant yield, for example, 5,000 tons. Then you push the button to estimate the amount of the fertilizers. So we get the estimated calculation. for the portion of phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen required. That is required to get 5,000 tons of the crop, especially from this field. The formula is also specified here how it was calculated. All coefficients are clickable. You can see the value and what kind of coefficient is used. Besides, there is also a possibility to generate a report. For agronomes, it is very important to get the report concerning the structure of the arable soils. So we select the estimation that is of interest for us. The report is provided in the form of a table and also as a map. There's also possibility to generate report concerning the yield. So they select the crop. So for this farm, for this selected farm, the amount of yield is not that big. It's only 3,000 ton. Increased yield for this crop. As for bigger holdings, the picture will be more colorful. And that gives the possibility to provide the analytical information. Analysis of the reason why you get low yield. So any parameter that is available within this system can be provided in the form of report. For example, we can get report based on the agrochemical parameters that can be provided in the form of report. Provided for the field or for the whole farm in general. Also, report can be provided in terms of the application of the mineral and the organic fertilizers. So any other parameters that are included in the e-book of the field's history can be displayed in the form of reports. Taking into account that the Belgorod Oblast is more directed to the animal breeding farms, we have created the list of all animal breeding farms. Clicking on any farm, we can see the area itself. We can also see provided information about this complex. The red color shows dry herbs area. So this information provides the territorial information and the number of the animals kept and the calculation of the fields available. Also, you can download the information of the testing of the fertilizers for any special lagoon. Besides the Ministry of Agriculture of the Russian Federation is actively subsidizes long-year plants. We have the register of all long-year plants of Belgorod Oblast. If you download such list, we go to the working areas of such farms. And we can download the types of breeds used for this farm. Phytosanitary status and the types of grades and breeds that are planted on this area. So this system is quite flexible, and we can reflect on any change that happens. So any changes can be updated, and any requests can be also answered that come from the side of the farmers. There are some layers that we can use. We can download maps from the satellite. The special layer is public cadastral map. Then we have the layer of the animal breeding farms. We have already demonstrated that one. There is a possibility to download information concerning meteo stations, weather stations. There are 6 stations in Belgorod Oblast. If you push on it, you can generate a report. For many years, related information during many years related to the precipitations. There is a function also to measure the area for the crops, to measure various plots. Based on this instrument, so this tool helps to finalize the vectorized mapping. This can help to the farmers to divide the field into several working plots, either combine all these plots all together. In conclusion, I would like to say that we tried to implement this tool. The tool to control online vehicles. Every vehicle of agrochemical center has a GPS tool. It's not expensive, so around €100. But this enables to see the tracking online and offline of any vehicle. The tracking occupies some considerable amount of time as far as its supported method. This enables to monitor the work and provide security of our workers. So this is the main information, and thank you for your attention.